When Ansel Adams said, "The single most important component of a camera is the 12 inches behind it," what he really was saying is that it's the camera operator that takes great photos, not the camera. Let's test that theory by getting that gray matter working. Join me in this tutorial as I show you some practical examples of my tips in action. This is Media Channels, a multimedia corp production, bringing you information about the latest media trends, helpful tutorials, and commentary on the digital world around you. Here we are at the last part of this mini-series on how to use your smartphone for better photos and video. This is part 3 of 3, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Stuart Rathje. In the first 2 parts of the series, I talked about the practical tips for getting better photos and video out of your smartphone. If you have not seen these videos, please go check them out if you have not done so already. So let's get right into it. In this section, I've put together a number of photos to show you the best way to get photography on your cell phone. And in this first photo, I have a portrait photo here of a church in Minneapolis. I took it in portrait mode simply because I needed to get the whole steeple into the picture. So if you have an architectural or large building that you're working with, your best bet is to shoot it in portrait mode with your cell phone. In this particular photo, it's the same church, and I shot this one in landscape mode so I could get the whole church in the scene. Here's another photo I took. This one I used to tell a story. In this particular photo, you see a raccoon. My buddy there is giving him some water because he was very thirsty, a very friendly raccoon. As you can see, there's a bike in the background because we biked up to Sibley Peninsula. And this is a very good shot, I think, for telling a story. This raccoon also followed us around after we gave him a drink. I have another example of a photo. This one is not a very nice photo. It does have nice texture, and there's a rock in the middle of the photo. It's a picture of a lake and a beach. The photo might look nice, but it tells no story. There's no context to the photo. So when you are shooting photography, make sure that your photo is telling a story or there is some context to the photo. And here's yet another photo. This one I'm using as an example on background separation. Here we are. I was by the river at this particular time. As you can see, the tree is out of focus and the river and the rest of the scene is in focus. So if you're trying to get background separation, you would just go very close to the object that you want in or out of focus, and then use your cell phone to focus on another area of the scene. That's how I achieved the effect in this particular photo. I have another photo here. This one was taken at Boulevard Lake about 3 years ago. I used my cell phone and the camera CV5 application on my phone. This one illustrates very well the rule of thirds. It does have a nice silhouette as well, and I used a longer exposure on it so that I could get a nice clean photo out of it. I think I probably set to about 5 seconds, and I propped it up on the concrete barrier that was there to get the effect. And there's one more photo here, or actually there's 2. But this photo, I was at a local conservatory. These are actually miniatures. I just propped my cell phone up on one of the rocks that was in this little miniature set here. The tree is real, but the gnome and the door obviously are, I believe, plastic. But you wouldn't know the difference just because I went so low with the cell phone. There's also a little shovel and a watering can in there. I really like this photo. Let me know what you think about it. And in this photo, it uses perspective very well. I took this one about 2 years ago as well with my cell phone. It was just sort of a random shot that I took. I like the use of the perspective, the angles. He has a very nice expression on his face, like he's looking off into the distance. And he's on his motorbike, obviously. So if you're trying to be creative, sometimes doing shots like this will pop up and you just have to take them. In this next section of the video, I will be focusing on the video aspect of your smartphone, particularly vertical video and getting better video shots with your cell phone. I have actually also plugged in a microphone into my cell phone for these next clips, and these clips were all done with a microphone that cost me about $15. It's actually a computer mic that I had mentioned in in part 2 of this series, and I think you'll be impressed with the results. I haven't added any post effects to it, any cleanup of the audio or anything. This is straight out of the cell phone. Okay, so here we go. So I'm just walking now with one hand, and you'll notice it's quite shaky. Okay, because I'm in vertical mode here, so I mean it's pretty apparent. Most videos you see in vertical mode is like this. I'm just walking around. All right, here I am again. This is another shot. This time I have my cell phone on my elbow, okay? And my elbow is sort of extended out, and then my hand is towards my chest and holding onto my other arm, okay? So this is definitely an improvement over what we saw with just hand holding it. So this is, if you don't have a monopod or anything, this is definitely by far the best way to take vertical video. So I can go up and down a little bit. I can't go too high or too low, but if you really need a stable shot, this would be the way to go. And I'm just going to walk a little bit here, just so you can get a sense of it. Okay. So it's not too bad. I'm quite happy with this, actually. So this is, again, this is by far the best you could probably do with this. I got my fingers on the top of the phone as well to help stabilize it a bit. And then I just use my thumb to control it. Okay, again, I'm here in a local park here, and I'm just walking around with my cell phone here, one hand again. Again, see, there's a lot of grass, a lot of sky. If I try to center it, there's a lot of sky. If I try to fit into the rule of thirds mode here, see there's a lot of clouds in the sky. See, it doesn't really tell you what is actually happening in the scene as much. Okay, I'm going to switch over to landscape mode here. Okay, here I'm in horizontal mode. Again, I have, or landscape mode, have my arms up against my chest here. And I'm just taking some shots for stability reasons as well. You can see a lot more of the scene as well. You can still see the trees, you can still see the grass, you can still see the fountain, but you get a lot more context. You can see the parking lot over on the other side of the courthouse here too. Okay, so I'm just going to walk around here. Okay. It's a nice day out here as well. So as you can see, you can still get some pretty steady footage just by having your elbows into your chest and doing some shots or video that way. Okay? Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my cell phone on my elbow again, like I did inside, and then prop my other hand into my other elbow and just have my elbow extended out. So it's resting on my elbow, my phone, and then I got my thumb and fingers on the edge of the phone. So now, as you can see, I can do a lot more now that I have it in this position. I can go all the way around. I can go up and down. There's my shadow. I can go up, see the trees and the fountain again. I can do some walking. And the stability is quite good, even though I'm not using a monopod in this shot. So this is probably the best way to stabilize that I've found anyways. If you have a better way to stabilize your cell phone that doesn't include fancy devices or gimbals or anything like that, let me know in the comments. I'd like to know about it. But yeah, I'm basically going to stick with this if I ever have to do video without a monopod. In this video clip, I'm going to be demonstrating the difference between the built-in microphone on the cell phone, smartphone, and also the difference between handheld and monopod. So right now I'm using the built-in speaker, and I also have the monopod on my shoulder, and it is fairly stable right now. Okay, so you can hear that the difference in audio quality is definitely not that great, not that good. I'm just going to focus in on here, and I'm going to start moving around and go down here like this. Maybe focus in on the mascot here. Try to get some focus there. Okay, going up. So as you can see, the monopod is just a much better experience. We'll go outside in the hall here. I can walk around. Let's take a look at the safe again. I'll go down a little bit here. This safe is not in use. Actually, it's for decoration only. But so as you can see, the monopod is a worthwhile investment if you're doing any sort of video with your cell phone and you want to get a better shot. As you can see from those clips, you'll notice some techniques were better at others at stabilizing your footage and getting better video. You will also notice too that when I was outside there was significant wind noise as well. I did not have a windscreen on my microphone, or what is also called a dead cat. So if you are outside and it is windy, it is very helpful if you were to get yourself a little windscreen for your microphone. That'll basically cut out most of the wind sound that you would have heard in that video. In the next section, I have put my cell phone into the clip, and I'm also recording the screen with my other camera. I will be going over some of the more technical aspects such as white balancing and frame rate and some of the other aspects that I went over with in the other two videos. Okay, so let's switch over to the other camera now. Alright, here I am back in the office, and I'm going to show you how metering works. I have the camera CV-5 app open on my smartphone right now, and I'm just going to show you what it is. So it's this button here, the one that looks like it's a square divided into a grid with a circle in the middle of it. Okay, so if I tap on that, right now it's set to basically to meter the entire scene. And if I go like that, now it'd be set to spot metering. Okay, or sorry, not spot metering, point, and this one would be spot metering. Okay, so I'm going to show you how this works. I'm just going to go back to scene mode here. Okay, so now the entire scene looks a little underexposed, and that's because I got the exposure set down. So I'm going to increase that a little bit there. Okay, put it up to 0. Okay, so that's basically where it should be at roughly. It looks like it's properly exposed. Okay, so I'm metered for the whole scene right now. If I move the tripod over to the window, it goes slightly darker. There's no major changes. Okay, if I go onto the chroma key, again, the brightness doesn't really change too much. Okay, pointing at the ladder. Okay, not much going on there. All right, so now I'm going to change the metering over to center weighted. All right, and let's see what happens now. Okay, so I'm going to go up and down a little bit. Oh, you see how it's going a little bit darker when I go over to the white? I go on the ladder. A little bit difference when I go into the ladder. If I go out towards the ceiling, there's a lot more white and gray in the ceiling. It will brighten up a bit. Okay. And again, back over to the ladder again. All right. Just gonna lock that off. Okay. Now I'm gonna show you spot metering. Okay. So let's click that spot metering. Okay. Now, see how much darker it goes when I go over to the white now? It's actually quite a bit of difference. And I'm going to try to point it up at the light, if I can. See how the light is way overexposed? Okay, but as soon as I hit right on that light, oops, a little bit of shake there, The rest of the background is pretty much a lot darker now. It's not properly exposed, and even the light is not even perfectly exposed, but it is exposed better than what it was on spot metering. So I come back down a bit. See how the light brightens up and the whole scene gets brighter? So this is spot metering. So it takes a spot right in the center there, where that circle is, and uses that to determine how bright the image should be. Okay, so I'm just going to go back on the ladder again. All right, so that's basically how metering works. So the next thing I'm going to show you is exposure and the exposure compensation. I showed you a little bit just a moment ago, but I'm going to show you right here. It's on the screen. It's this little meter here at the bottom. Okay, it goes from -2 to +2 on a sliding scale, and then the red mark is where it's set at. So if you're finding that your photo is overly bright or overly dark, you can adjust the exposure on it to improve that situation. So if I go here, I just slide it up. See how it's brightening up the scene? Now it is actually overexposed now. And I did open the shutters behind me so there's a little more light in the scene, and you can see a shadow now on the ladder as well. Okay, so I'm taking the exposure down now, and it's darkening right up. So if you got some problems with your scene, you can adjust this setting as well with the camera CB5 application. Okay, so I'm going to move it over here, and just pointing at the door right around where the black is there. Okay, that's actually the hallway. So it looks pretty dark right now. I can actually see out the window, no problem, and I can see what's on the other side of that door. But because it's underexposed, you're not seeing that. So I'm just going to put it back here. I'm going to up it again. Okay, trying to up it to the point where we can see what's on the other side of that door. All right, so if you look closely, you'll see there's a carpet and there's a brown door on the far corner there. Okay, so basically that's the exposure compensation. You can get to it in your settings. If I bring it up here, I believe it was under, okay, it should be under bracketing. Okay, so I can actually set how much I want to bracket it to as well. So if I go down to 1, it basically only has one line now, so that's the range that it can work within. If I go up, I was at 7 before, 0.5, and then I can actually make it even more granular or more fine controls by using this, like this, and see how it expands out like that. So I'm just going to set it back to what it was, and just leave it at that for now. That's exposure for you. All right, so the next setting I want to show you is the ISO setting. Okay, so on this particular application, we have ISO down at the bottom here. It's currently set to auto, but if you find that the quality is too low or there's some issue with the brightness or the darkness of the photo or the video, you can actually click on the ISO, and I'm going to set to, on this particular phone, it depends on the phone, you can actually set it probably higher to 800, but on this particular phone it only allows up to 800, so that's as bright as it's going to go. So I'm going to click on 800. Okay, so that's manually set now, so regardless what I do now, it's always going to be at 800 ISO. Okay, so if I go into the dark, it's going to be 800 down here. So basically, no matter what light you're getting, it's always going to be set to ISO 800. Okay, so you'd only want to use manual ISO settings is if you have consistent lighting in your scene. If you have inconsistent lighting where it's going brighter and darker, or there's bright parts to it and dark parts to it, you probably don't want to set it at a manual setting such as this. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to take a shot at photograph at ISO 800 to show you the difference in the quality. Okay, so take a photo here. Oh, didn't take it. Try again. Okay, so I took a photo here at 800 ISO. Okay, I can actually see the grain on the screen already. Now I'm going to set the ISO to 100. Okay, and I'm going to take that same shot. Okay, hopefully it takes it. All right. Now let's bring up the photograph here. So this is the ISO 100, okay, shot. Okay, and this is the ISO 800 shot. Let me zoom right in here to see what's going on. And maybe just put the exposure back up here. Okay, so the next thing, and the bracketing actually, I'm going to turn that back on for a second here. Set to 1. If I do this, if I set to 7, I can get a very consistently even lit scene. So we'll do something like this. So just go back here and see, because we got some bright white there and then we got some darker green. So I'm going to just try to center that as best I can. Okay, so it should take 7 shots now, and it's going to take those 7 shots and combine them into one image. Okay, so let's try it out. It's supposed to anyways. There we go. And as you can see, while it was taking the shot, it was getting more and more bright with each picture. Okay, so now let's just look at that. So it does look a lot better. Okay, there's a lot less noise in the photo as well when you do a multiple exposure picture like this. So if your app has that, you could use that bracketing feature. And on this particular application, you go into settings and then up to bracketing right there. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off again, set it to 0 and down like that. Okay, we're done. All right, so that covers that bit. All right, so the next thing I'm going to show you is the white balancing. And I have my mascot here with a paper airplane that I created. My mascot here, he's in my softbox and he's got a pink face, a red shirt, very vibrant colors, and then white contrast on the paper airplane in the background. Okay, so I have set up a light to shine on my mascot here. It's just a standard LED light. There's no filters or anything on it. Okay, and the camera, the cell phone, seems to be picking up the white balance pretty accurately in this case. If I click on the white balance button, I can manually set it to other colors as well. So over on the far left, I have the extreme blues. Okay, so that's like cloud cover type of temperature. And then the next one is sunlight. So that's standard daylight, 5500 Kelvin. Next one over is fluorescent lighting, which is about 3500 Kelvin. And then on the far right here, I have incandescent lighting. So that would be the warmest color. It doesn't seem to have a candlelight setting or anything like that, but that's fine. So if I go and change it manually, so I can go to, if I set the white balance to very bright outdoors, the sky, you'll see how the colors are showing up very sort of warm and muddy. Again, and if I set it to daylight, seems to be doing not too bad in daylight, because the lights that I have shining on here right now are actually rated for about 5500 Kelvin. So it's pretty accurate, the white balance on this particular setting. If I go to the next one, I have incandescent lighting. Now I do have some incandescent lighting here in the office, but it's not actually shining really on my mascot here. So as you can see, he turned a lot more red and a lot more pinks in there. It's totally messed up the white balance, so we don't want to stick with that. And then we go over to the warmest color we can, incandescent, and you'll see how it turns very bluish. Okay, so we went from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. So you want to try to match the white balance of what you're shooting in. So if you're shooting outdoors, you're going to ideally want to be on daylight unless you're shooting the sky, in which case you would be on this one, okay? And then if you were under an office space setting, then you'd probably want to use that one, or at home back here, right? Leave it on auto white balance, but if you find that it's not quite working out for you, you can play around with the different settings, and hopefully your smartphone camera application has these. If not, then you just have to use the auto white balance. All right, so we're going to move on to the video aspect of this, and I'm just going to focus here. Okay, so he's in focus now. So basically, we're going to check over some of the more technical settings here to improve video quality. So if I go up to the gear option here, okay, and then I go to the cinema, okay, and I have an option here for custom video settings. So I had it turned on, so I'll just turn it back on here. Okay, and then you could change things like the container format. So you're probably going to want to leave it on MP4. Most phones will have it at that setting. You have your video resolution. So if you want to take smaller videos or smaller in size, you could change it in options like this. So you have full HD, what it's currently at. Then you have standard HD, which is 1280 by 720. And then lower resolutions as well. So in the last video, I did explain that you could try lowering your video resolution to see if it would help with background noise and problems in low light situations. It doesn't actually work on this particular phone, but try it on your phone to see if it works. So I'm just going to put it back to full HD. Video codec, you might as well just leave that the way it is. 264 is the standard right now. H.265 is around now, but I'm not sure if there's any phones that support it yet. Okay, and then the important things we wanted to look at for the sake of this video was video bit rate and frame rate. So I'm going to change the bit rate. Okay, so when I first started out, I believe it was sitting at about 16 or something. Okay. This particular phone allows me to go up to 34 and then down to 256 kilobps. So the quality on 256 is going to be very, very poor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this low again. Set it to real low, like 717 kilobits per second. Hit OK. Go back. Okay. And then I'm going to record. Okay, so it's recording right now, okay, and I'm just going to do some movements here just so you can see, and then I'm going to upload the photo or the video from my cell phone so you can tell the difference here. So this is the lowest quality, okay, and we'll stop recording. Okay, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to change it to a higher bit rate now. Cinema. Nope, I'm the wrong one. Okay, video bit rate, and we're going to set it to, I don't know, we'll set it to 24, which is a lot of consumer camcorders seem to be sitting around this bit rate. Okay, well here's something that may pop up on your screen. The selected value is over the limit that is officially supported by the camera driver. The camcorder might not take this value into consideration or the recording might not start. Okay, so let's hit OK. All right, so I'm going back into the settings menu here and I'm going to change the bit rate up to a higher value that my phone actually supports. Okay, so 16 seems to be around the maximum of what my phone can do. I'll just set it OK. Back up. I'm just going to check that setting because it still said 700 and whatever BPS on there. Okay, So there we go. Okay, so we know that it's working. All right, so let's focus here. And I can do another recording here on the phone. All right, and we'll just move around and go like this just to get some motion into the shot here. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Well, I'll hit stop. Okay. So these are the different bit rates. As you can see, the quality difference is quite extreme from one to the other. You'd probably want to set it somewhere in the middle, just for the sake of keeping everything at a decent size and you're not filling up your phone too quickly. And the other setting I wanted to show you in here was actually the frame rate. So let's go back to settings, go back here, and I'm gonna go down to frame rate, okay? And my phone supports all the way up to 30 frames per second. And as in the last video, I explained the difference between NTSC and PAL. So in North America, we're on NTSC, so we'll set to 30. I wish I could go up to 60 on this phone, but I can't. So 30. Okay. Go back. Focus again, and then we'll start recording. Okay. So we're at 30 frames per second now. So the motion is going to be a little bit smoother. You should notice that there'll be less sort of a warp to it, or okay. So let's put them back here, get them straightened up again, and we'll hit stop. All right, and go back to settings. I'm going to set that back to 24 before I forget. Okay. Okay. Go back here. Focus him again. Okay. So that covers frame rate. So the frame rate will increase your file size. The higher the frame rate, the higher the file size, but you will get a smoother video out of it. YouTube supports up to 60 frames per second, and so do most other video services. Except for Facebook Live, which doesn't support 60 frames per second. And then the last setting I wanted to show you on this screen was the histogram. Okay, so the histogram is actually set up a little different on my smartphone than how it was explained in the last video. In the last video, most histograms are a graph. This one's actually divided into 3 graphs. So it's a little different. So on the right part of the screen here, you'll see the histogram. So there's red, green, and blue, and these are the primary colors when you're dealing with technology. Usually it's RGB. So right now, the histogram is looking not too bad. Okay. So on the dark side of it, we have some darks, we have some mid colors in the blue range, and then some brighter in the color range, okay? And it goes the same with the greens and the reds. So if I move the camera now, let's say up to here, you'll see how the histogram changes. So the histogram is basically just measuring how much of a particular color is in the scene, and if it's gotten too much of a particular color, okay? So it's doing a half decent job, I think. Let's go down the red. So as you see, as I go on the red, see how the red is shifting all the way to the bright side? But it's actually pretty well exposed as well. So you're not going to see huge variance right there. I'm just going to lock them up again. So one thing I can do to show the extremes of the histogram, okay, I'm just going to change the exposure. So if I lower the exposure, see how the histogram is going way over to the left side of the screen, okay? So that's basically telling me it's underexposed. So there's nothing on the bright side of it whatsoever. If I go over to here, okay, change it a little bit, and I'm going to change the light metering mode to spot metering. Okay, so I go on the red. See how the graph increases on the red? When I go up there, I go down here, changes again. Okay, so the ideal histogram would be right in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to up the exposure now to show you the other extreme. Okay, I'm going to set it all the way up to 2. So what we have now is basically clipping. So a lot of the color information is actually being lost, and it may not look like it, but the image quality is degraded at this point, because if we were outside, you would be missing a lot of the whites, and the brighter color, or the brighter colors would be overexposed. You wouldn't actually be seeing them. They would just show up as white. So that's not an ideal situation. So you see that the blue, the green, and the red are all way off to the right side, and it's off the graph. So if this camera had better dynamic range, it would probably could extend technically further to the right, and you'd get a little more color information in your video or photo. Okay, so I'm going to set this back here. Okay, so this is kind of one way you can get a decent histogram here. So I'm going to just put it up to about right there. Okay, so now I have a fairly even distribution. So on this side, on the right side, there's very little information, and on the left side there's very little information. So it's a well-balanced photo, and it might be a little bit hard to tell because of the white background, but that is the case. If I set it to normal exposure, so this is like the automatic exposure of the camera, you'll notice that some of the color information is being clipped off on the end, even though it's very little. So having it overexposed just a little bit seems to be the sweet spot for this particular scene. Okay, see, I can move down and whatnot. All right.
And this wraps up the practical portion of this tutorial mini-series. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching. For more of these videos and my podcast, don't forget to like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel using the icon in the top left corner at the end of this video, or click on the watermark at the bottom right corner. If you have any other tips or questions, please leave them in the comment section of this video, and I will respond to them. Thank you for watching today, and don't let Trudy get you down.